All right, class, this is the last participation grade that I'm going to hold for you guys because we're going to have a lot of work coming up and I want you guys to really focus on that. So, um, I will be answering your questions here for the last time. If you have more questions, you can always remember, like, I'll always be on Slack and you can send me a message inside of Canvas and I'll get it, or, Slack's the best way to reach me because I'm on there all day for my regular job. So, but yeah, let's get going to everyone's questions. Julia.
Hi guys. As the semester's coming to an end, I'm wondering. I don't know if this has already been said or if it's in the syllabus. If I missed it, but is the final gonna be a test or a project?
Good question. It is in the syllabus, and we are going to have a final project. In fact, I already posted the first section of this project here on Canvas. And what we'll be doing is creating a motion graphics reel. We don't really do tests in this class because it's all project based, and so in short, a motion graphics reel is a collection of all of your best works. And don't mind any of the dates on there. I'm adjusting things as I go. But I have already published this for you guys today, so you can get started on this. And this is the first draft of this. In fact, let me change the name here. Editing together of the mini projects first. All right, let me just do that around here. Save it. All right. So, but basically what this is a collection of all your best work in one video, and it's something that you would show prospective clients or employers. You always hand one of these in anytime you apply for a motion graphics job. They really don't, I mean, they do look at your resume, but the most weight is held in your reel, and it's basically showing that you can back up what you say with your work. And so we will be taking all of the projects that we have done in class and we will be editing it into a motion graphics reel. And here I have on the module some information about it and then some examples of some motion graphics reels by some professional animation studios around well, I would say country, but this one in Weevoke, I believe, is in the Netherlands. So um, just different popular motion graphics studios, and then some information and details about what the project will entail and how long it will have to be, as well as the video lessons where you guys can watch me assemble them. This first part is very short, like maybe 10 minutes long, where I'm kind of introducing the project. And then you will be turning this in as a first draft, and I will be looking at it and giving you feedback on it. And then the second draft ends up getting turned in with all of that feedback for your final grade. And so your final grade will consist of that and possibly the other project, which is a color scope, which is kind of similar to the two things you've been doing recently, but you're integrating 3D as well as 2D into your project. So good question because that is coming up very soon. All right, Edward.
All right, so I had a question, or actually more of a technical issue. So when I tried to alter the preset,
It's going to open in Premiere. It's
there
really
you go.
weird. Or into
I
the
drag it over
export
to the
settings.
other
It's weird.
window, which is weird because I don't know, maybe it was because
This is
that it,
normal.
like something with the computer or what, but for some reason when I was attempting to export this as a smaller file, or it came up essentially saying that I did not have like the window would not pop up. Essentially, is what happened,
Hmm.
and my HDMI was unplugged. This is a laptop that came from the school, so I don't know if there was just an error or that was one technical issue.
It could have been an error that happened for you, Edward. I know sometimes that there can be, because you're in Media Encoder and you click on that and it opens another window for you to change all the settings and stuff. Sometimes there can be miscommunication in between when you click that button and it opens up the window, and it can cause issues within renders. I've seen glitches in renders before and stuff. So there can be a lot that's going on. If you are getting an error code, like if it's saying blah 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 number so and so AB64 or something like that, um, copy that error code and drop it into Google and say like Adobe After Effects error code and then paste the code and see what comes up and see if it's something that other people have encountered. That's the best way to kind of troubleshoot issues when you run into them inside of After Effects, because unfortunately it is a program that's consistently, like, they're upgrading it. I think they should come out with a new program that holds everything a little bit better, but that is probably not going to happen for an extremely long time. So, in the meantime, just know that when they do updates and stuff, sometimes it causes bugs in the system, and it's good to report them to Adobe when it asks you if you want to, so that they can be aware that it's going on and they can read the error report and try and fix a problem. So,
well, not credits, but the other technical issues I did mention with some of the assets, I actually forgot to add the 3 seconds that were blank. So let me go to Blackbird. Blackbird 2, I think it is.
by the way, FYI, I appreciate all of that organization there. It looks very nice.
But,
I can't tell you how nice it is when I get a file from another animator to work on and it is beautifully organized. It makes my life and my job so much easier. And so this is appreciated. Just to let you know.
I think it's so with this. I had originally done the same thing with text. Like I just grabbed like a bunch of like Cthulhu Mythos looking text, but I guess because I had too many floating or just randomly generated, whatever you want, whatever the term is correct, it would not render or come out. And I tried to do the same thing with the background for here, but it would not do that as well. And kind of the same thing going on with here. Another technical issue that I had faced was that when I was doing the nodding for the little Cthulhu head here, it would actually just spin rapidly in 360. I just didn't know why until I had to like reset up the scene.
Yeah, this is weird. You might benefit from uninstalling and reinstalling After Effects, because it sounds like what you're running into is a lot of these weird bugs that aren't part of the system and shouldn't be happening. That's really odd, unless for some reason the anchor point was in a weird spot. But I mean, your video, the Cthulhu head looked like the anchor point was in the correct spot to me. So I would possibly, and even if you uninstall and reinstall After Effects, it's not going to affect your projects, right? Because they're a project file. You'll just uninstall it, reinstall it, and then go from there. And how you guys uninstall it is you come into your Creative Cloud app here, and you will find where it is, and you're going to click on the three dots, and you'll uninstall. And then you can reinstall it from the same spot. So I think it would benefit from that for you, Edward, because I don't know what's going on, but you seem to be running into a lot of issues like that are coming from the back end. And so I'm not sure what's happening here.
So, and also this, This is another technical issue, just more of a minor one. I didn't know how to properly align these because it was slightly off from the original version, and a tad bit annoying to deal with. But and I think another technical issue I also had was that for when recording the audio, it would just come up as a long blank line for a while until I reset, like Control Z, and then just continue with the voice. What else? What else?
So let's address these. Yeah, you approached the issue with the line in Adobe Audition just fine. I would have probably done the same thing. As far as putting the um as far as your alignment of these, like the tentacles, right? You're gonna want to make sure that the anchor point on the tentacle, because I'm assuming you use some kind of repeater on this, um, is at the very base of the tentacle. And then if this is in, it looks like this is in a pre-comp, right? That the pre-comp anchor point is in the very, very center, not of the composition, but of the actual circle itself, right? Because if it's not in the center of the circle, it won't be centered here with your icon. So that's something to think about. Let me kind of
And
fast forward here
outside
a
of
little bit.
technical issues, I think. Let me see here. Let me go to scene, not scene three. I have scene three. I guess a question is because I had originally wanted this to be like a what's the
Like a beam.
like a bunch of little dots,
Okay.
small visible dots, visibly moving upward towards the sky,
Okay.
but it
I
would
can show
look
you.
a little off. So like it will end here, but continue moving up here.
Okay.
I didn't know how to fix that.
It could have been in a pre-comp if you were using a pre-composition and the pre-comp was too small. There's also something that you can do using particles inside of After Effects. And I will just kind of quickly show you guys how to use this. Um, as far as them being like densely packed for a beam, I think what you did here was a good idea. And what you could do is overlay some of those little dots to look that way. It's a long render time when you have to use things like the particular world and stuff like that. So, for example, let's create just a new composition, 1920, 1080, 24 frames. Sounds good. And let me throw in here an adjustment layer. New adjustment layer. And on that layer, let's go into our effects and presets and type in particle once particle. And I'm probably going to use CC Particle World. And I believe that's the right one. Let me just double check. When I hit play, yeah, no, it's the particle world here. And when I hit play, you're going to notice that particles start to appear. Okay, well, we can tell that they're emitting from this little emitter right here. Technically, this little gridded area is like the floor of it, correct? And what you do is you go down into these different settings on the side. So let's say that we wanted, let me see. That's fine. That's fine. These aren't going to show up. This is a new, close that. Let's say that the birth rate, I think if I drop that down, it's going to change how many are coming out, right? Like how many are being birthed through the emitter. If I turn this up to 15, look how densely packed it is, right? The longevity is how long that they are on, like they're alive for, essentially. So if I have these, they're going to die out very quickly, versus if I extend this time, it's going to take 4 seconds. It's going to take 4 seconds, right? Because that's where we're, like, if I put this to 1, I'm sorry. If I put that to 1, it's going to take 1 entire second from it to be birthed until its death, right? Because when you're thinking of a particle, it has a birth and it has a death. The producer is where this is in space, right? So if I move it around, I can change it, I can rotate it, things like that. The other thing here is physics, right? How velocity is going to impact this. Let's say I wanted it to go up. I would type in -1 there. I think that is, or if it's, and I turn down the gravity, and I change the velocity is how quickly it's getting pushed out. I'm sorry. I was saying that like that is the force against it. The resistance is essentially what we're going to do. But let's say I wanted to add some resistance there so it's much slower, right? So I'm adding a force upon this so it's causing the death to happen quicker. Let's see here. Let's put this to 0. And notice that this is kind of odd. This is, let me see what's happening. It's very slow and sluggish. I'm going to hit 1. Let's add some gravity here. Let's increase the gravity a bit. Here now, if you go in a negative direction, it is going to act like the gravity is reversed, right? We're moving up now instead of down. What else can I show you guys? So the animation right here, explosive is the type of animation that looks like you can change this to twirl, and notice that they're twirling around each other, right? So there's a vortex, which makes it come straight out. This actually would be a great way to kind of show that beam and like the edges are moving of the beam. It looks actually really cool that way. Let's move this down to like 5. I think that's a neat way to actually show the beam, and you can just move the producer down. You can animate the position of this. I don't want to do the X, but the Y position. Remember, this is also in like a 3D space, so it's always going to have 3 dimensions to it. But you can move this down. Let's say I wanted to change, let me see. Let's drop this down, the birth weight to 3. Let's drop this down to like 0.25. My computer is chugging. But you guys kind of get the point, right? I think my computer is going to take a crash because I'm recording and it's a laptop, so. And then I'm using a ton of, this is going to use a ton of your GPU stuff to, I'm going to close this out, to, render this in real time, right? So, but that is a really good way that you can do something kind of like trick the eye into thinking. Let me see here. I'm going to close this. No, I'm not going to save it. But a really cool way to do like that beam on there that you were talking about, and having like kind of particles around the beam.
So I just ended up with the taper line effect
Which is fine.
of it, like just slowly erasing with time.
You might also be able to add some noise
That was one question.
from the effect onto that.
I guess then another one would probably be for the Blackbird. Should I have made this smaller
No.
for when animating it? And I don't think I think you're right. I didn't add a motion blur. Oh, that was actually, no, I lied. There was another technical issue. Whenever I tried to add motion blur, it would just shut down. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think you need to reinstall the
Maybe because I had too
thing.
many scenes.
You animated the birds were at a fine, like the size isn't a problem because you can always bring the pre-comp down, right?
Maybe I
You
had too
can
many
always
elements in the
change
background.
the
I don't know,
size
but
later.
it just too much was. I think I just had too many elements in the background here, and it would just crash.
It can do that
So that was another technical issue.
if your
But
files are really big.
I do have two scenes with blur. Let me
Yeah,
add that the
so
credits, and I don't know if that's going to change anything, but
I think you did a good job on your project.
yeah, that goes back to deleting the assets and whatnot. So I
Having
don't
to
know
do
how
the
this is going to come up. I don't want to press play and just see. I don't know. Guess see what
Okay.
happens. But yeah,
You can
that's
tell
kind of
we
what
still
led
need
me
to
to not posting this on Stacks because of the random crashes
That's
here and
okay.
there. But yeah, no, that's it.
You did a good job, and especially considering all of the issues you ran into. So overall, Edward, good job on that. All right, Melanie.
Professor Amanda. I am, well, the only
Hi,
question I
Melanie.
have this week is basically the voiceover.
Mm-hmm.
I had bought a microphone to help me out, but it seems that it's not really like helping. And I guess like the only alternative is to use my phone. I was hoping if like you could like help me how to set it up because I've just used the regular like camera of videotaping and I just know that my voice doesn't sound as well as I want it to. But yeah, like my little microphone doesn't really help as much. I don't know if like there's a different alternative. If you could help me with that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, Melanie, why don't you write me in Slack and we can like set up a time where I can figure out what's going on with your microphone. You said you bought a little microphone. Um, if you bought like first of all, let me know what kind of microphone you bought when you're writing me. And then let me know where the specific issue is coming up, whether it's not picking up audio or you're having trouble um with it sounding good, so we can figure something, we can troubleshoot on that. And in the meantime, you can always do it with however you're recording these. It doesn't sound atrocious, right? It's not the best audio, but it sounds fine. You can always record it this way and then bring it into Adobe Audition and edit out some of the noise. And if you want to know how to do that, I can help you with that as well. But let's try and get that microphone set up for you so that you can use it since you purchased a new mic. So, but yeah, I'll need to help you like outside of here in order to do so. All right, Ryan.
So I don't know if you've seen the new Into the Spider-Verse animated film, but my question kind of pertains to that. And so I noticed when watching it and watching the trailer, the characters are three-dimensional, but the buildings and other things seem to be more two-dimensional. So I was wondering, what kind of program would be used for that, if it would be an overlay of multiple programs brought into one, because the two-dimensional things aren't necessarily like completely just flat or like some of the animations we've created in class. So I was just wondering, what kind of thought would go into creating that kind of effect. If you have seen it, there's one character who's animated every 3 frames, his body, and then his guitar every 4. So I was just, that's like something I would never think of. So just, what kind of thought process goes into that when you want to animate a character like that, and even broader, a film like that, and have 3-dimensional and 2-dimensional aspects.
Yeah, first of all, great question. Second of all, I have yet to watch it. I've been unfortunately I was hit by a red light runner a couple of weeks ago and my car was totaled in the process. I am okay, thankfully, but I've been going through a lot of stuff on the back end, and so I haven't had time to go see that wonderful film, which I have heard has been amazing and has been getting rave reviews. I'm waiting for it to come out on like streaming platforms so that I can stream it, rent it, and stream it. But I love that observation that you made about how you notice the backgrounds seem to be 2D and the things that are in the forefront of the scene, right, are 3D. And yeah, they absolutely do that in a lot of films. They'll have uh, backgrounds that are just done, maybe illustrated by someone in like a program like Photoshop, right, where you can get a lot of texture and depth and things like that. Or sometimes they will maybe they'll build a mock scene with 3D, like they'll have it partially in 3D and then they will, since there's nothing moving around in it, what they'll do is they'll bring that into, they'll render it out all gray and then they'll bring it into another program like Photoshop where someone can illustrate over top of those so you can get like shadows and highlights and things like that correct. It just kind of depends, and as far as it really boils down all kind of all of your questions about like the background and the animating on threes and animating on fours, it all boils down to what you want the end result to be, right? So um, they wanted the smoothness and of each animation of each character to look differently to give it a little bit more of like an attitude, or they're like trying to riff off of the personality that the character is supposed to exude, and so they will match the animation style to that specific character and how that character's personality is, right? So, the whole thing where they were mixing the timing, animating on threes or twos or fours or whatever, was just kind of a thing that they decided to do to match the way that the characters were, right? If the character is a rigid character, they would animate on like threes or fours so it would look a little more choppy. And if it was like a smooth character, I think like specifically Miles, it was something more smooth. Like the Lego, right? Like stop animation, for example, stop motion, claymation, things like that, they're only animating at 12 frames a second because moving something 24 times to get one frame um, or 1 second of film would be a ton of work. And so that's why animators that do claymation and stop motion are animating at 12 frames a second because it's much quicker to do so, even though that type of animation takes a really long time, right? So all of the pre-planning boils down to how do I want my end result to be? And you will find that you never really actually stick 100% to your plan. Sometimes when you're going through a process, you're experimenting with things and different techniques, and you realize, hey, it might look better if we do it like this. And sometimes that means you got to go back and do a little bit of extra legwork, but you end up with a better result, right? And so the pre-planning just comes down to like being like, what kind of style do I want it to be in? What is like the story that I want this character to portray, like to the audience? What do I want the audience to get from this? And so that's kind of where the idea of pre-planning goes to. You'll notice like a lot of when you have things that are in a lower frame rate, for instance, uh, 12 frames a second, right? It makes things look older, like an older animation. So if you're going for an older vibe, let's say you have something that looks kind of vintage, um, and you're only you would maybe want to animate that at 12 frames a second because it makes it look a little more choppy and just kind of older look to it. Similar to, the cutout style animation where you have um like a paper kind of look to it. Like it's cut out pieces of paper and they're animated together. Having them kind of do hold frames and only like 12 frames a second, it makes it look, it gives it like an aesthetic look to it that is, um, that kind of choppy. I guess I can't think of another word to use right now, but it's like a specific aesthetic appeal that you're looking for with that, like very crafty looking, right? And so that is kind of, I mean, that's a very quick way to explain to you how the kind of pre-planning happens with that. And they use multiple techniques. And a lot of things will probably change now that AI is been introduced into the art world. So I think that's going to change the way things are done, especially with like backgrounds and stuff like that. So, but yeah, way to start thinking about that stuff. All right, Marsol.
So after your class ends, would we still have access to Cinema 4D and all the other applications?
Yeah. So your Adobe applications will stay active as long as you're active in school, and in like the creative programs. As far as your Cinema 4D license, the Cinema 4D one expires after 6 months, but if you're in another animation class, where you do 3D work and stuff like that, you will just renew the license at that point. But good question, because I had another student ask that to me in email. So, all right, David.
Hello, everyone. Just have one question. What's the easiest way to put a gradient onto a mesh?
Oh, gradient onto a mesh. So we are thinking, let's see here. Let me open Cinema 4D. And we're going to most likely add a gradient in a similar way that we would do a texture, or adding kind of like we did to the, let's see, let's add a cube here. Let's see how it works with a cube first. Let me turn this a little bit this way. And let's start with a blank material. And we're going to open that material. Double click, triple click. There we go. Gosh, sometimes. Okay, and inside the reflectance, let's add, let me see. No, I don't want that. Oh, shoot. What is happening? Ow. I think it like fully removed it. Let's do this again. There we go. Let's go into here. Color. Let's add one under color into texture. Let's try it here first. Fall off. Gradient. Haha, I figured it out. All right, and then we're going to double click that gradient. And let's say I want it to be more black right there, right? And then I can double click this and update the color. Let's say I want to do blue. And then here, let's do like a violet or something. Let's do a brighter one. Okay. And then you could drop this onto here. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, and so we want to maybe update the angle that this is at. First of all, it's kind of a hard line for me, which I'm not a big fan of. So let's kind of bring that down. Move this up a bit. Change the direction of it. Diagonal you can do. Radial. It's all just like playing around with it, right? And trying to find the best way that you want it represented on your object. It's going to be kind of hard, I guess, on like an object that has very hard edges, because it's not going to look smooth and you're going to find a seam somewhere. Actually, this kind of looks nice because it's hitting in the corners, which kind of makes it look neat. Actually, like that. Let me see here. Oh, if there's a spherical, is there? I feel like there's one way down here that I can't see. Cylindrical, nah. I say I like the four corners one. And then if you go back into the color, you might be able to... Nah, we don't want to do that. Let's see if we can change the mix strength there. I feel like there's got to be a way, if I have it here, there might be a way to map it to each face in a specific, let's see here. That's going to come down to like unwrapping the object and then possibly hand doing the gradient. Or doing the gradient in a program, bringing it, overlaying it on that. Because right now it's applying it to each face, which we don't want, right? We want it like this top face to be not that color, which you could always like easily, if you hit U, or sorry, I apologize, C to make this an editable object. And then we created another. This is just a quick workaround. This isn't like a solution I would use all the time, right? Once you get into more 3D in-depth classes where you're like doing UV mapping and stuff, where you're pulling apart come on. I would take this, let's try the RGB. Let's try a hex number. I would copy this. And then I would paste it to the color here. Does it allow you to do this? You could also use your color picker. I think that will work. Okay. And then I would select this face. And then I would apply this specifically to the face. And then you could do it like that, right? But this is just like a quick, cheap way of doing it. I wouldn't do this all the time. I would just do this in this instance right now. But you can add a gradient like that. If not, then you'll have to learn how to do the UV mapping and stuff, which would be under like the UV edit. And you would be able to learn to do that in the next class coming in. Not that I don't want to show you, but it's a lot to show. That's like a whole thing. So, but that was a quick way to show you how to do that. All right, Isla, let's do your question.
Hi. So when I was working on my assignments the other day, I remembered that I could create shapes and backgrounds in After Effects, and
Yep.
I was wondering if it would be easier to make shapes in Illustrator, or if it would be harder to do it in After Effects, since I know I can do like similar things in After Effects, but there's like more tools and like things I can do in Illustrator. But I was wondering if it would be better to just do it in Illustrator and then like import it into After Effects, or
I work that way.
would it be easier to create shapes in After Effects and just make it a composition and then work on it in like a main project?
I think that some people use After Effects as like an illustration program, but I find that to be kind of a messy practice because you really don't, like you said, have access to all of the illustration tools that you have in Illustrator, which is an illustration program, right? So you're going to have way more options when it comes to illustrating something there. And then just making sure, I apologize, making sure your layers are all separated out. Blah, words are hard. And then bringing those into like importing it into Illustrator. That's why I teach you that way, is because it's just a little bit um more flexible in my opinion. As far as like drawing in After Effects, do I do it? Yes, sometimes I do. I usually will do it for very simplistic shapes that I'm looking for, like a circle or a square or something like that. Like maybe I need to add a box to something and I can throw it in there and then round the corners of it and do some like simple like editing of the shapes and stuff like that. Not a problem. But like, would I do a full illustration inside of After Effects? Absolutely not. It would take me way too long. Versus like Illustrator, which has shortcuts and buttons that are meant to make you work faster. So, good question. That's why we work in Illustrator, though. Lazaro, let's do your question.
So I had a question about the audio in After Effects. I feel like there's like a way to manipulate it to where you can put sound effects on an audio clip, for example, like make it sound like a robot or alien. Does After Effects goes like deeper to where like you can manipulate the audio to where you could put plugins like a compressor, EQ, a de-esser, reverb, and then also is there a way in After Effects to like slice the audio and like get like very fine increments edited out of it,
No.
or like a fade in, fade out type of thing, or is it just ideal to get all the audio completed
Yeah.
before you drag it
Yes.
into the?
Yeah, because so After Effects is absolutely atrocious in handling audio, especially live playback of audio. And so like doing any kind of audio editing besides a fade or a quick cut is just really crappy, to be honest. Like it's more frustrating than it is worth it. And so it, even Premiere, which is Adobe's like video editing software, handles audio much better. And you can do those type of things like quick fades and like slices where you can cut the audio. You have like a razor tool similar to like you do inside of Adobe Audition. But your 100% hands down best choice is to be using things inside or using Adobe Audition first to get your audio correct and then bringing that inside of After Effects. I don't know if After Effects has options. Like, I guess I haven't played around with their audio effects, if they even have those. Um, I just, I don't, I hate the way audio sounds inside of After Effects, to be honest. So I don't play around with it too much. Like the de-esser and like if you're, compressing audio or adding reverb or taking reverb away, or you want to like do sound removal and stuff like that. I do all of that inside of Audition. I wouldn't even try to figure out how to do it inside of here. In fact, if I'm doing that because I also in my job I don't just animate but I edit video as well. And so if I'm doing that kind of stuff, I will bring that into Audition as well and work on it there because it's specifically an audio program. So it's just easier to bounce back and forth. It's worth opening the file or like opening that program and letting it boot up versus like all of the headaches and hassles and workarounds you would have to do working in different programs. So good question. All right, Paige.
Right, hello. So
Hello.
my main question, going back to my butterflies, just because I was working on it for revision, when I was trying to get them not cockeyed anymore. I had tried turning on the 3D layer
Did it not
and it
work?
didn't work.
Oh no.
But through a lot of like clicking and unclicking things, I found out if I had turned off the rasterization on this part, then
It worked.
my butterflies would end up normal.
Crazy that that's
Um,
how you do it. I'm so sorry that you have to do that. Sucks, but like, I thought that would be the answer. I apologize that it's not, but I'm happy that you tested it out with the other things and
this
found that
also
that.
happened with my fish. Same situation. If I had that rasterization turned on,
Maybe that's something we need to look into further online, like why it does that. Like it almost skews the imagery if you have the raster continuously rasterized. I wonder if it has to do with the fact that there is a 3D layer inside of the pre-comp. So that's where I'm assuming the issue lies with.
then my fish wouldn't wiggle right and it would just be completely wrong. And I guess I was just wondering, like, why is that happening?
Yeah.
If I turned on the rasterization on here and stuff, like, why is that causing that?
Like I said, I think it has to do with probably the issue of there being 3D layers inside of the pre-comp. And that when you have it like animating in a different dimension, like I don't know why that happens, like to be honest. Um, it's like one of those freaking weird things that something happens within, like almost not the same as like a glitch, right? But it's just one of those weird things that you can't really figure out what the technical reason is, but you can kind of get the gist of it is that it must be because this is continuously to rasterize the object and to make it sharp at no matter what um like scale, right? And for some reason that is interfering with the 3D layers that are happening inside of it. Although it looks like it hasn't lost any type of rasterization here, like it hasn't gotten blurry or anything, so it works for now. My concern is like, would it work if you were to scale this and do it that way? So I'm not quite sure. I can't give you the definitive answer of like, if you go into this and you look at the code and all that stuff. But this is just kind of what I'm taking away from the what you're telling me is there's an issue between the rasterizing that's happening and the 3D layers that are happening inside of the on the actual layer.
And so on.
But I'm happy that you figured that out.
Thank you.
Because that would have been so frustrating. I'm so sorry that happened. But your custom 3 scene animation was very cute and I really enjoyed the fish on that. With that being said, you guys have old projects that have zeros and you have them done. Let's turn some of those into me. What I would like you to do at that point is like send me a message in Slack letting me know, hey, I actually had this project done and I just didn't have time to turn it in, but it's ready and can I get it? I will go ahead and try and grade them. You won't get you'll obviously have points marked off for being very late, but at this point, I want you guys to be able to get some things in for your reel. And so just send me a message in Slack letting me know, hey, I have this, and this I need to turn in. How do you want me to do so? And then at that point, depending on what I'm doing that day, I will let you know how to turn that into me and that I can grade those for you. So, this semester has been very hard. I am, but you guys have been doing a very good job keeping up with all of the hard work, and a lot of projects, a ton of projects that we've had in this class. And they take up time. That's the thing that no one realizes is you're like, oh, I'll do it next week. That'll be fine. But as soon as that work starts piling up, you realize like I am in the weeds and I am having trouble and I cannot keep up. So just let me know if you do that. Let me know if you guys have any questions beyond this. But since this is the last time me talking to you guys as a class, you guys have done a really good job. So I hope you've had fun this semester and learned a lot. And let me know if you have any more questions. Bye, guys.